Stop what you're doing. Everyone, stop what you're doing. Go get your 2021 NASCAR bingo card. Everyone get it. All right, let's check the list. Alex Bowman signing an extension. Yeah, I got that one. I saw that one coming. Brad Keselowski leaving Team Penske. Okay, yeah, some people might have gotten that. Brad Keselowski leaving Team Penske to become a part owner in Roush Fenway Racing. Okay, not a lot of people got that one. Now let's go to the next one. This one, man, I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but Trackhouse Racing purchasing not just a charter, but all of Chip Ganassi Racing. Throw it out the window. Nobody saw this one coming. Trackhouse Racing announced yesterday, hey, we've got a major announcement coming tomorrow. And I personally thought it was going to be Kurt Busch to the second Trackhouse car. That's what I thought it was going to be. That was my kind of guess in my head. That's what I thought it was going to be. But no, boy, was I wrong. Chip Ganassi Racing, who's been racing in NASCAR for, oh boy, a long time now, is now selling to Trackhouse Racing. No, not just a charter. Not a charter, not one car, not a driver, not a team. The whole freaking thing is being sold to Trackhouse Racing. Everything. The teams, the car. Well, I guess the cars are irrelevant after this year. Everything's being sold. The shop. Everything about it is being sold to Trackhouse Racing. We are going to talk about the details of this massive, shocking news right here, right now. Remember, Trackhouse Racing, they do have a charter this year. They're having a pretty solid first year with Daniel Suarez as their driver. Team is owned by Justin Marks, former NASCAR driver, winner at Mid-Ohio in the Xfinity Series, and singer-songwriter Pitbull. Obviously, Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, well-known everywhere in the world. So, yeah, that's a big deal, but we know the owners. We know who they are. We know the driver, Daniel Suarez. We know the people on this team. But the team itself is new. It's young. It only has one car. And they had talked about expansion for quite a while. They had talked about wanting to be a two-car team, wanting to open a second car, but they had to find a charter first. And then came the issue of their first charter. They were leasing a charter from, I want to say, Spire Motorsports I think Spire Motorsports. And Spire Motorsports sold that charter to Colleague Racing, who will have a full-time Cup Series team next year. Two full-time Cup cars next year. So that means two charters. They leased that charter that they had been holding and had given to Trackhouse Racing for this year. They had given that to Colleague. So Trackhouse had to scramble. I don't know if they had to scramble, but they had to go look for a charter now, not only for a second car, but for Daniel Suarez in that first car as well. And they went to Chip Ganassi Racing, and they didn't just ask for a charter. They threw the bank at Chip Ganassi, and they bought the entire team. Now, that is a part of the news today. That is a major, shocking thing. I didn't know what to say at first. So they had a NASCAR press conference on NASCAR.com at the Hall of Fame. And, I saw Justin Marks up there, Ty Norris. Ty Norris is the president of Trackhouse, I believe. He used to work at DEI. He's worked in NASCAR, Michael Waltrip Racing. He's done a lot of stuff in his career. And I saw Chip Ganassi get up there, and I was like, why is Chip Ganassi up there? And I was thinking, wait a second, are they going to do a merger? Are they going to merge and, maybe do a Trackhouse Ganassi Racing? Ty Norris gets up there, and he's like, we are proud to announce that we have bought Chip Ganassi Racing. And I was like, say what? I had to rewind. I had to re-listen. I had to go check Bob Pockrass' Twitter, Adam Stern's Twitter, Jeff Gluck's Twitter. I was like, there's no way he just said what he said. He did not just say that they bought all of Chip Ganassi Racing. Well, what he said was right. They have purchased all of Chip Ganassi Racing, all the assets, everything. So let's talk about it. We've been talking for 5 minutes now about random stuff. I'm going crazy. I didn't know this was going to happen, but they have purchased Chip Ganassi Racing's NASCAR team. They have not purchased Chip Ganassi's IndyCar team, his sports car team. Anything else that it owns, it's only the NASCAR team that they have acquired through this mega purchase. That is the only thing that they have acquired. So the transfer of all of Ganassi's NASCAR assets to Trackhouse Racing will be completed immediately following the 2021 season. Daniel Suarez will continue with the organization. The second driver is to be determined, but the top candidates are Kurt Busch and Ross Chastain because their former rides are currently going to get booted or they're turned into Trackhouse. But anyways, what that means is that Chip Ganassi will be completing the 2021 season with Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch as their drivers. That means that if they make the playoffs, they're going to get to compete for a championship as Chip Ganassi drivers. They're going to continue to go for wins each and every week. But once the 2021 season concludes at Phoenix, they will make the transition. Chip Ganassi Racing will no longer be a NASCAR Cup Series team, and Trackhouse Racing will now have two cars. They will have the Chip Ganassi shop, the Chip Ganassi everything, and they will become Trackhouse Racing. So that's the general gist of it. And as for Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch, this is where it gets kind of funky. And then you also have to look at the guys who work for Chip Ganassi Racing, whether it's the pit crew, the crew chief, the people who work back as engineers at the shop, whether it's PR people, whatever it may be at Chip Ganassi Racing, all their futures are in question. Justin Marks said that he would try to keep as many Chip Ganassi Racing people as he possibly could. But, taking two teams, you've got your current team at Trackhouse with Daniel Suarez, and then you got two teams at Chip Ganassi Racing, and you're only going to have two teams at Chip Ganassi or at Trackhouse Racing in the future. So the reality is that people will lose their jobs in this move, so it's unfortunate for that. But Justin Marks did say he would try to keep as many people as possible. As for the drivers, if your favorite driver is Ross Chastain or Kurt Busch, they are now free agents. Kurt Busch was already a free agent at the end of this year. His contract expires after this year, so we knew he was going to be looking. He likes Chip Ganassi Racing. He likes Chip Ganassi. So there was a chance he was going to stay with Chip Ganassi at Chip Ganassi Motors or Racing, but there was also a chance he left. Rumors have been circulating that he might go to 2311 Racing in that second car. He might go elsewhere. But Ross Chastain, he was locked in at Chip Ganassi Racing, and he was going to be their guy. He was going to be their next guy to try to win a cup race for him, to try to make a deep run in the playoffs for him. But that is no longer going to happen because he will be a free agent. But they are the top candidates for the second Trackhouse car. I don't know what number it's going to be. I don't know if they're going to bring the sponsors over like McDonald's, Clover, Advent Health. I don't know, Monster, if Kurt Busch joins. I don't know if if they're going to go talk to those sponsors and try to get them on board over at Trackhouse, but there's a lot of question marks still to this big move that was made today or announced today in the NASCAR world. But man, I feel bad for Ross Chastain. He was supposed to get an Xfinity ride at Chip Ganassi Racing a few years ago after he had been given a part-time gig to run a few races, and he had done so well. He had won a race or two. He had led a ton of laps, won stages, but then that whole federal investigation with DC Solar, so Chip Ganassi Racing lost the sponsorship in that deal, and it fell through. They had to close the Xfinity team, so Ross Chastain was left without a Xfinity ride, a good, solid Xfinity ride until he was able to join Colleague. And then after that, finally, he gets to drive the 42. He gets to go to Chip Ganassi Racing and Cup. It's only going to be a year because Chip Ganassi Racing is selling, so I do feel bad for Chastain, but if I had to guess, I think he will be in that second Trackhouse car. I think Kurt Busch going to 2311 is very likely. I think it's just very likely, but my guess is that Ross Chastain will be in that second Trackhouse Racing Chevrolet next year. But yeah, that also helps because they're Chevrolet. Chip Ganassi Chevrolet, Trackhouse is Chevrolet. I think they're going to try to get the alliance that Ganassi had with Hendrick. I think they're going to try to get that alliance with them, say, hey, we worked with you before. Some of these guys have worked with you before, so let's continue to do it. So I think that part of that deal, the alliance between Ganassi and Hendrick, will now be between Hendrick and Trackhouse, using the Hendrick ECR engines, all of that stuff. Now, let's see. Ganassi gone from NASCAR after this year. It appears that Ross Chastain, I'm going through Bob Pockrass's Twitter trying to see if I missed any details or trying to get the most details I can. As I said, Chastain will likely be a free agent unless Trackhouse signs him immediately. Kurt Busch will be a free agent, but don't get this wrong. There are only two cars that Trackhouse will be running. I know that they currently have a car and that there are two cars at Chip Ganassi, but like I stated earlier in this video, with the way the charter system works, you have to pay a buttload of money to get a charter. That means you get to run in every race every year. You're guaranteed a spot in the race. But what has happened is the current charter for Trackhouse Racing is not theirs anymore. That is a Kaulig charter. After this year, that is a Kaulig charter. So I want you to think of it as Trackhouse Racing is open. They do not have a charter. They're an empty space, but then with the Chip Ganassi purchase, they now have the 2 Chip Ganassi charters. Think of it that way. They had nothing, now they have 2, because they had 1 this year, they lost it, so it's math, right? They had 1, now 1 minus 1 is 0. Then they added 2, that's 2, so it will be a 2-car team next year. All right, sorry, it kind of confused me at first too. If you're confused by it a bit, and then the charter system's weird. But here's what Chip Ganassi had to say, and this is what makes it more shocking. My NASCAR team was not for sale. Justin simply came to me with a great offer and even better vision. As everyone knows, I care deeply for my employees, so selling to someone like Justin, who is part of the CGR family, made the reality of selling much easier. I guess Justin Marks did race for him in the Xfinity Series. I didn't think about that, but, Justin Marks, in case you didn't know how serious he was about owning a NASCAR Cup Series team, well, think again if you were doubting him, because he is very invested. He is very serious about this. He wants to win. He wants to compete for championships. And if this doesn't show it, I don't know what you want him to do. But there were estimates on how expensive charters alone were a couple weeks ago. I think they said $10 million. So I can't even imagine 2 charters plus the whole team plus the shop plus whatever mechanics, engineers, employees, all that stuff. I can't even imagine what it is, but Trackhouse, they've got some funding. They've got a lot of good sponsors behind them. Then they got Pitbull, he's got himself a good bit of money. So they threw the bank at Chip Ganassi Racing and said, here you go. Here's our bank account. Take as much as you want. They didn't give a number. They didn't give a specific number, but they probably spent a lot of money. That's what we'll say. It was not the $20 million that were probably the estimate for the charter. It was probably way more than that. I don't know, 70, 80, 90. I don't know how much it costs to buy a pretty decent NASCAR Cup team with 2 cars. I don't know. I'm mind blown still. But yes, so once again, Mark says the plan is to work out of the current Ganassi building in 2022. I'm assuming that's in Charlotte somewhere, the Charlotte area somewhere. I think Trackhouse Entertainment, which is kind of what the Trackhouse brand is, their base is in Nashville, but that is not the race team. That is just their entertainment section. But obviously Suarez will still be in the 99. Nothing's going to change about that team. They're going to keep that the same. They're going to keep the driver, the crew chief. I'm sure they're going to keep everything the same, but now they're going to have Ganassi engineers helping out, Ganassi people kind of helping out with that. As for the second car, question mark. I really don't know, guys. But Chastain, Kurt Busch, I'm just mind blown. No one saw this coming, but someone made a point. Ty Norris, who is currently the president of Trackhouse, he used to work at DEI and he left, and it was a big ugly thing. He talked about it on Dale Jr.'s podcast with Teresa Earnhardt, the wife of Dale Earnhardt and stepmother of Dale Earnhardt Jr. And, if you don't know that, just look up Teresa Earnhardt in NASCAR. It's a lot of controversy. It's a lot of butting heads over copyright stuff. But basically, she used to own DEI after Dale Earnhardt tragically passed away. And then, she sold the team or whatever. She sold DEI because they couldn't keep operating. And I think somehow the one car became Chip Ganassi Racing. I don't know all the details. I wasn't a fan back then. But basically, Ty Norris now runs the one car. So that's kind of ironic that Ty Norris runs the car that he used to work for at DEI. And he left because of Teresa. Ironic. So if you're into that stuff, that's pretty ironic. But yeah, so the shocking thing to me is that Chip Ganassi said that the team wasn't for sale. He wasn't looking to sell it. He wasn't going up to people, hey, I don't want to be in NASCAR anymore. You want to buy my team? No, he was just kind of like minding his own business, looking at the next-gen car. He was like, ooh, what can we do? How are we going to extend Kurt? How's Ross going to do in this new car? What are we going to do? And then Justin Marks comes up to him, throws a bunch of money at him, and Chip Ganassi's like, I can't turn down that offer. Sold to the highest bidder, or the only bidder. But that's kind of shocking. Chip Ganassi, his whole thing is, I like winners. And, I do think a factor of it is losing sponsors. You know, he's pretty sponsored up in IndyCar. I'm sure he is in IMSA too. But, you know, over the past few years, they've lost some pretty big sponsors NASCAR-wise. After the 2017 season, after Larson's 4-win season for him, they lost Target. Target's a big brand, and they sponsored most of the schedule for them. They had been sponsoring Ganassi for years, back to Juan Pablo Montoya and stuff. So that was a major hit, I'm sure. And then remember last year, of course, you know, the whole Larson thing, and then Kenseth came on board, and he got to keep those sponsors because they switched drivers. But after last year, Credit One Bank left, and Credit One Bank's they were pretty big and invested in NASCAR. I think they still do, the Credit One to go or whatever. So, you know, that was a significant loss for them. And if Kurt Busch is leaving and he told Ganassi that, hey, I'm leaving, that means they're probably going to leave. Monster is going to leave too, because Monster invested in Kurt Busch. They stay with Kurt Busch. So if Kurt Busch leaves, they're going to lose Monster. And so, you know, that's kind of like that might have affected if Chip Ganassi knew that Kurt Busch was leaving, they were losing that sponsor. That might have played a factor into it. That might have, you know, affected his decision, and that's why he sold the team when he was offered the opportunity. But I don't know, but Chip Ganassi Racing will no longer be a NASCAR Cup Series team after the 2021 season. Trackhouse Racing will become a 2-car team. Locked in at 1 is Daniel Suarez. He will drive the 99. He will continue to do that. The second car is TBD. I would guess Ross Chastain, but right now, Justin Marks did say that Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch are the top candidates for that car, just because they used to race for Chip Ganassi Racing. But I'm willing to bet that Kurt goes to 2311 and Chastain stays with his old car, now becoming the Trackhouse car. But as I said, I didn't see this one coming. If you saw this one coming, please tell me what year you're from, because you're not from the current day. I knew that Trackhouse Racing had a big announcement today. They had announced it yesterday that they would be announcing something at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And I thought it was going to be a driver, or it was going to be a sponsor or something, or the addition of a charter. But they full-blown bought out Chip Ganassi Racing. I am shocked. I can't believe that happened. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. How shocked are you that Chip Ganassi Racing is no longer going to be at the racetrack in NASCAR? They're no longer going to field the 42 car, the 1 car, these cars that we've seen for years and years. They've won races. They've won races last year, the year before. They've won with different drivers. Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson, Juan Pablo Montoya, Jamie McMurray. You know, some of these guys that we know and love and we talk about all the time. So let me know your thoughts on that. I am shocked. I'm shook. I can't believe it, but Trackhouse Racing has expanded to a 2-car team, and they will be taking over Chip Ganassi Racing, who will no longer be in NASCAR. Have a great rest of your day. If there's any more shocking news like this, I will tell you as soon as I can, but